No matter what hobby or interest you have or what job you do, I can pretty much guarantee you need a pouch in your life. In this video, I'll explain how I use pouches, what I use, and explore a few interesting pouch options. My interest, as you probably know, is everyday carrying travel gear, or to put it another way, gear that reduces friction in everyday life and when on the move. But a well thought out pouch tailored to a job or a personal interest or hobby can be of benefit to everyone. And hopefully this video will be a source of pouch inspiration for those who might not have considered one before. Let me start by saying I don't use pouches for my pocket carried gear, and by that I mean things like keys, wallet, a knife and a flashlight. And even though these are all compact, I'm not tempted to try and fit all these into one pouch and then try and fit that into one pocket. Instead, I use pouches for kits. In short, a collection of items that perform a specific function. And a first aid kit is an obvious example, or a bike toolkit. But when you think about it, everyone can bring together their own favorite functional items that fit their own interests into a kit, and therefore, if size allow, a pouch. In my case, recent examples include this outdoor adventure kit and this travel kit. And if you want to know more about these particular kits, I'll provide links at the end of this video. As you can see, both of these kits utilize the same pouch, and this is called the Maxpedition Mini. And Maxpedition are one of the best known pouch makers out there, and for good reason, as we will see. And this size of pouch is the one I always seem to come back to, and that's probably because invariably these kits form part of my everyday carry depending on what I'm doing. So if I'm outdoors, I'll generally carry this one. If I'm traveling, I'll generally carry this one. And when you're carrying kits over longer distances, the bulk and particularly the weight become key factors. Try to focus on what you actually use or expect to use, and that will ultimately determine the size of the pouch you need. And that is one reason why I think Maxpedition are so prolific in the marketplace. This is only part of one of their ranges, and as you can see, we have lots of choice, and that really helps when choosing the perfect size for your needs. Couple that with the fact that they offer each of these in a variety of different color options, and you begin to see why they are so popular. And as usual, if you need more information on any item featured, I'll have links in the description below. So this is the Mini, the one I use the most, but if I wanted something a bit smaller, then I would go for the Micro, a very popular choice for that smaller kit. Something a bit bigger than the Mini would be the EDC. It's a little bit wider and taller, but if it wasn't fat enough, I'd need the Fatty, which is the same size as the EDC but a bit fatter. Then if I wanted something a bit taller and a bit skinnier, then we have the Skinny. And then there are more things like the Beefy and the Chubby, which I don't have here. So as you can see, lots of choice. So let's have a close-up look at the Maxpedition Mini. The internal space here is quoted as 6 inches by 4 inches by 1 inch thick, which can be a bit misleading as the space is not rigid. So something bigger than 1 inch, for example, will fit in here like this camera, but obviously it will be at the expense of something else. For a pouch to work for me, it has to open fully flat, and the Maxpedition does that very well. And then combine that with lots of elasticated loops, which are in this case double layered with various size options, and that means the contents are immediately visible on opening, and you don't have to try and remember what you have in here, and you don't have to hunt around to find it. And that for me is what I want in a pouch. One of the flaws with the Maxpedition pouch is the fact that the elasticated loops are opposite each other, and what it means is if you fill one side with bulky items and try to do the same with the other, it simply won't close. It's a real shame they don't move one side up and one side down, and that will give you a lot more flexibility. But if you are careful in where you position everything, then you generally can find a way to do it. It just might be a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. Just having a quick look round this Mini, it's not heavy at 90 grams, and it's made from a lightweight, waterproof and abrasion resistant nylon fabric, which is Teflon coated, so dirt and grime can be wiped away. The double zippers we have here are YKK, which are the best out there, and I've been told can cost 5 times more than the nearest alternative, so is always a pointer to quality. And the zipper pulls, which are paracord, work really well. Now inside we have 2 slip pockets here, which are best for flat items and the only area where items can be hidden from view. There's an attachment loop here on this side, and on this side we normally have a plastic clip. Now I've cut this off because I find it's bulky and it gets in the way. As you can see, we've got a mesh front pocket here, which can actually be hard to access if the pouch is packed full, and it has a Velcro fastening to keep your contents safe. And you'll see we've got a Velcro patch on here for morale patches if that's your thing. And on the back you can see we've got an oversized grab handle, which I really like, and it helps if you need to hang the pouch or grab it in a hurry. And we also have PALS webbing on the back if you want to attach this to a suitable pack, although I generally have these loose. The price for this is in the mid-20s, that's pounds or dollars, which I actually think is quite reasonable for something like this, which is going to last. So now we have an idea of how I use a pouch, let's have a look at some alternatives. And first of all, I thought I would go budget with a Maxpedition clone or copy. And there are quite a few of these around, as you might expect, but I'll link to this one in the description below. As you can see, they look very much the same. Nylon construction, although no mention of Teflon with the cheaper one. And also the same material is used throughout this one for the interior and exterior, whereas with the Maxpedition we see they use different materials for different parts of the pouch. And that to some extent will explain the weight difference. This is heavier at 108 grams, that's 20% heavier than the Maxpedition. Not ideal, but we do see we've got some straps on the back here that will add a little bit to the weight and create some more attachment options, although I think actually it spoils the look a little bit. The front Velcro panel tells a bit of a story here. You can see we've got some loose threads and it's offset a little bit, and that's just an indication of the difference in quality, as is the lack of YKK zippers on the cheaper one, so a little bit of money saved there as well. This doesn't look quite as nice or feel quite as nice in the hand, but at £10 or dollars it's less than half the price of the original, and it might not last as long, but it's still very functional. So if your budget is tight, it might be the one for you. Personally, I'd prefer to pay more, support the originator and benefit from a higher quality product. Next up we have the Vanquest Slim. Now this is interesting because I would say this has been inspired by the Maxpedition rather than simply copying it, and they've made some changes. So this has a Velcro fastened front pocket, but as you can see it's not mesh, so you can't see what's in it, but I think it does look a little bit neater. The materials used here are the same, including the Teflon coating, and on the back we can see a shorter grab handle which is folded over and sewn, which I actually think looks a little bit neater as well. And then we have the same PALS molly webbing on the back. The zips are YKK, so you see there is an emphasis on quality here. We have the same attachment loop and plastic clip which we see on the Maxpedition. You can see here we have a brighter lining, which I think works well, as you can see the contents more clearly. And when it comes to the elasticated loops, we don't have the double layer we see with the Maxpedition, which is a drawback as the double layer increases the size options for items held in place. But we do have offset loops, which helps to avoid the items interfering with each other and preventing the pouch from closing. Although I do think in terms of the positioning of the elastic loops, it could be better executed. I thought it'd be an interesting exercise to see if the contents of my outdoor kit will fit in here, so I'm just gonna move everything across. Let's see how we go. So here we have everything in here transferred from the Maxpedition, and it doesn't actually quite fit and I can't close it. The pouch is a little bit thinner, it's 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch thick, whereas the Maxpedition is an inch thick, and I think it might be a little bit smaller. No fault of the Vanquest for that. It does work really well, but I do think the Maxpedition elasticated loops are better. So some advantages to this and some disadvantages. The price, incidentally, for the Vanquest is at the high end of the £20 or dollars, so actually a little bit more expensive than the Maxpedition. Okay, let's move away from the Maxpedition type pouches and look at a couple of other options. And at the premium end of the market, we have this admin pouch from Nutsac, and this is made in the USA, and the quality is immediately obvious, something you would probably expect to see when you consider the $89 price tag. Now, this is a little bit bigger than the others we've seen so far, and this comes in at 6.5 by 4.5 by 1.5 inches. It's made from heavy duty waxed canvas and is relatively heavy at 160 grams. It has the Powell's Molly webbing on the back for attaching this to the pack, and also on the front in this case, and this can be used to hold gear in place such as flashlights, pens or knives, etc. And we have very secure bar tack stitching everywhere, which points to the quality of this pouch. The zips are YKK, as you would expect on a premium pouch like this, complete with leather zip pulls. And even the press-stud fastenings on the back here have had the Nutsac treatment. Internally, you can see we've got a really nice canvas lining, and on this side we have 3 rows of elasticated loops, all one size, that lined up with the molly webbing on the other side. When it comes to the other side of the pouch, we have just 3 gear pockets, and they're quite tight, and they would be okay for things like pens and small knives and things like that, but it feels a little bit of a lost opportunity on this side for maximizing space. You can see the pouch doesn't open fully, which if strapped to a pack would be probably a good thing, but if you stand alone, which is how I use it, it becomes a bit of a disadvantage. So again, let's just load the contents of the outdoor kit and see how it works with the Nutsac. Okay, although this is technically a much bigger pouch, I'm actually struggling to get the contents of the outdoor kit in here. Because it doesn't open flat, it's quite hard to get the items in compared to one that does. And because the loops are all the same size and not that big, it's putting quite a bit of tension on the pack, and you can see it's pulling it in quite a lot. The loops aren't big enough for the flashlight, so it's hard to know where to put that. I'm also struggling with the flatter items, particularly things like the mirror and the notepad. Because there's no flat pockets in here, there's nowhere for this to go, so you just have to put that in the middle. So you can't argue with the quality of this. It feels great, and I'm pretty sure it would outlast anything here, but for practical use I would prefer to see a flat pocket somewhere and better use of the space on the underutilized side of the pouch, with maybe some elasticated loops offering different spacing to accommodate different sizes of gear. Next, I wanted to introduce the utility pouch from Alpaka, and they make some great pouches, slings and backpacks, and this is a move away from the military feel to a more tech feel. And this is a bit bigger than the Maxpedition at 20 centimeters by 4.5 centimeters by 12 centimeters, and this weighs 143 grams without the shoulder strap. And yes, this thing does come with a strap, so it can be worn like a sling, although I think I would gravitate towards an actual sling for that sort of application. The price is around £50 or dollars, which I think is pretty good, as there is a lot going on here. First, we have an X-Pack waterproof fabric and also Cordura on the back. There are weatherproof zips, and they're all YKK. Everything is lined, including some rather nice orange highlights. And when it comes to organization, we have a zipped flat pocket on the back next to a carrying handle, and then we also have a zipped pocket on the front, and that has some useful volume to it. Inside, and this thing does open up flat, which is great to see, we have a large slip pocket here, and we have a slip pocket there. We have a zip here and 3 smaller pockets, although I would normally put in maybe a small knife or a flashlight, and if you put that in here you wouldn't be able to zip it up, so that's a little bit strange. And then on this side we have a couple of elasticated loops right in front of 2 pockets, one which is larger than the other, and it's clear the quality here is very good. Now, the best way to see how this works for me is to transfer the contents of the outdoor kit into here and see how it fits. I've got everything in the Alpaka pouch, but it's not been a great experience really. Let me open it up and show you. It's very hard to see what you've got and where things are because you've got lots of concealed spaces. With these pockets here, clearly things have to stick out, so the zip doesn't really work and you can't really see everything you've got in there. We have got flat spaces, so it is good for flat items. And we've got other pockets with things in, but trying to remember where everything is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Having played around with pouches for quite a few days now, which I have to admit sounds a bit weird when I say that out loud, including a few pouches I don't have time to feature, I'm beginning to see why Maxpedition seem to dominate. Elasticated loops are the best option in my view to utilise the space most efficiently and to keep the gear mainly visible, which I think is really important. They open flat, again for easy visibility and access. They are well made, lightweight and affordable, and there are lots of sizes to choose from, so you can get one that is the best match for your chosen contents. Add in a few colour options and good availability and you have a winning formula. So in summary, for half the price of the Maxpedition you can buy a Maxpedition copy, but I see that as false economy at this price. The Vanquest is a valid alternative and I prefer the front pocket and contrast coloured lining, and I initially got excited about the offset elasticated loops in the Vanquest, but the double layer elasticated loops of the Maxpedition allow for more flexibility in size of the contents. It holds them in place better and doesn't pull on the lining as much, so I prefer it in the Maxpedition. The Nutsac is expensive but really very nice, although the internal organisation is not what it could be. And the Alpaka again is really nice quality, but again the internal organisation doesn't work for me. The Maxpedition is therefore the winner, especially when it comes to creating a kit. Finally, if you'd like to see the Maxpedition Mini put to good use, then here are the 2 kits mentioned earlier. One is the outdoor kit and one is for general travel. So that's it for this one. I hope that's been useful and thank you as always for watching.